It's human nature to reach a certain age and develop questions about your childhood. But how do you answer them when you come from a community of children who lost their parents to the most senseless crime there is? How do you learn to believe in humanity when the world turned its back in your hour of need? And how do you move forward when you still live next door to the people responsible for killing your parents and leaving you to face the aftermath of genocide alone?
The main reason for this journey was to look for the answer for the question why this happened. And when I knew that we are going to work on this project, I felt like if I become like a storyteller, the world will know about the orphans and what to survive mean. This is my dad, and this is my mom. Yeah, my dad and my mom.
When were the pictures taken?
Before the genocide, yeah, 1993.
I met Emmanuel Habimana during my first trip to Rwanda. It was 15 years after the Tutsi genocide. It was a Holocaust where, in 1994, ethnic Hutu extremists, led by the government of Rwanda, killed nearly 1 million innocent people in just 100 days. The killers were often the neighbors, friends, or sometimes even family of the victims. Immediately after the genocide, the old government was overthrown and new leaders took over. 9 years later, they shocked the world when they began releasing tens of thousands of killers from Rwanda's overcrowded prisons and sent them back to their communities. This was under the condition that they would ask the survivors they victimized for forgiveness. When I was a college student at the University of Nebraska, I went to Rwanda for the first time to study this. Emmanuel was a law student working as a cultural liaison for my university group. During the trip, he worked with me on a film project I had come to do about post-genocide Rwanda.
You have a beautiful country. Yeah.
I did most of the shooting, and he did most of the interviews in Kinyarwanda, the official language. One day he brought up a group of survivors who had some of the greatest challenges with reconciliation, yet who we hadn't been interviewing. The orphans of the genocide. He talked about how they were hunted in 1994 for reasons they were too young to understand. He talked about being children and watching people they knew doing the killing. Then he talked about his own experiences, having barely survived the genocide himself at age 9. Rwanda was largely abandoned by the international community when the genocide began. His family was killed in a massacre that was a direct result of that. But he said the story of his peers wasn't about despair. It was about survival. After the genocide, Rwanda was left with the highest percentage of orphans in the world. Now they are young adults, and ever since 1994, they have strived to take their lives back in ways no one ever expected them to. As their ideas developed, he proposed co-directing a documentary on their story, about what it took to survive in 1994, and what it takes now to move on from the past. A year later, I returned, and what followed was a journey that would take us throughout Rwanda, halfway around the world, and back.